I'm happy to have you here and to share this moment with me. And before we get started, I'd like to invite you to get into a comfortable position in case you haven't done so already. And until we get started, just enjoy the silence. Breathe in deeply and breathe out with a certain willingness to it, at least at first. Over time, you will notice that your breath calms down and finds its own smooth rhythm, and then you can just let it be as it is. But first, really put a bit of an engagement into it. Breathe in this pure potential, this energy that this fresh air brings with it, and then out you breathe all the stress and negative energy and emotions. It might sound very esoteric, I give you that, but perhaps you feel a tightness in your chest area, some sort of a restriction, and at least for me, that feel is what I sense when I store pain, and it makes me get short of breath. Perhaps you know that when you're sad or in pain in general, you do tend to get short of breath. When we tend to panic a bit, we hyperventilate. So the breath and focusing on the breath can be really beneficial. And I want us to loosen up those restrictions, those tightnesses that at least I personally, to some degree, in those situations, link to negative, destructive emotions. As you breathe out those contractions and that negativity, maybe you feel yourself becoming lighter and happier, and also generally more calm. Maybe you also perceive yourself to be more centered within your true self. Perhaps now, in situations like these, you feel more like you currently are yourself than during everyday situations. And that's a beautiful thing about sessions like these. We come home. But the thing is, it's not a path. It's not a journey somewhere. Well, in a sense it is, if you were to say it's a journey of learning or unlearning, deconditioning from things that I've gathered over the past, but basically, it's all right there already. And what we're doing is we're letting the light of our conscious awareness shine bright by getting present, and mainly we're simply letting the clouds of our mind and our resulting constructs or ego constructs drift away, leaving bright, clear awareness. And what remains is the essence. But perhaps if you were to do what you're doing right now for another 10 minutes, you'd feel, compared to now, more yourself. We're getting there in a way. And I want to really invite you to let go of everything that's not truly you. And I don't want you to make an effort in any way of thinking about that. Just be. Be aware and shine the light of your consciousness onto the shadow of your sub and unconsciousness. Let go of the concepts and ego constructs you've shined your light on. And the problem with definitions or labels like that is that on the one hand, they do help because via these words we convey basically links to other people that then somehow understand what we're trying to convey. And oftentimes we're talking about very abstract things in meditations or in spirituality in general. But something that I can't stress enough, it seems, is that there's this big risk of falling into a spiritual ego. And it's just an ego like so many others else. And it can be a really big ego. Here you are having this gigantic ego of being the wise meditator, being the spiritual person who knows and feels things that perhaps other people don't, and they're so unaware, so unconscious. What should I do with people like them? They don't understand. They're so superficial. If you shine your awareness on that, in case you have any of such patterns in your mind, you analyze or you come to find out that there's a certain degree of validation that you give yourself with that. It makes you feel smart, and it makes you, in a very superficial way, feel better, and you degrade other people because they're so unconscious and you're so spiritual. It's a construct again. It's all that I'm trying to get to. And I'm not saying that this affects you. I don't know if you have this construct, but many people do. And to a degree, I do too. I shine my awareness on it, and I decide for myself that this is not truly me, this is not who I want to be, and I get centered with it. And all of a sudden, it's not an encounter from mind to mind anymore, but heart to heart. And when you do this, when you look at other people, heart to heart, so many things, so much violence, so much superficiality. Is that the correct word? so many superficial things just fall away. You don't need any validation, because looking for validation oftentimes is a result of you not feeling like you're enough. And when people cause other people harm, in my opinion, it always can be traced back on that person feeling pain themselves. And when you're not looking at that person with your mind, but with your heart, you don't feel you don't feel hate towards this person, even if they voluntarily hurted you. You rather feel sorry, you feel compassion. And at times that can be difficult, because it's easy to say, oh, this person, it's just a bad person, you know? We're just so much better than that person. They don't even deserve us. It's simple. But when you try to be a little more understanding, you get to the point, I believe, where there's just no one that you can actually really hate when you're really centered within. Because you realize that they don't hurt other people voluntarily deep within, but because they themselves are so far from their own essence, so caught up in their mind and in the constructs, in the bubbles, in the walls that they have built around themselves, in order for them not to feel pain. They isolate themselves in this illusion, and they're so far from themselves, which is, to me, peace, bliss, love. And they're so far away from it that they don't see it in other people either at times. And if you look at it from that point, it's hard to feel hate or resentment or anything like that. You much rather feel compassion. It's often not so easy to get centered within while we meditate. Because although we want to get centered, we, without wanting it, often get so many thoughts that that disturb us. At least we perceive it as a disturbance. When we try to meditate and our mind plays various songs or videos, memories, something, it tends to irritate us, it tends to frustrate us, and it makes us all the more vulnerable to our mind finding a reason not to get centered within right now, because after all, we're trying to get out of the mind. And here is our mind showing us so many things that we couldn't care less about right now. But it's a good indicator. An indicator that there's still something left there that we, in a way, have to work on. Or we don't have to, but it might be worth it. And I want to encourage you not to identify with those thoughts, but also not to fight them. I'm not able to quote him correctly, but there's a quote from Eckhart Tolle, a great spiritual teacher that I can highly recommend, who said, you overcome what you accept. Something in that sense. You need to accept it in order to move on from it. Because if you were to fight it, you'd fight a difficult fight, because it's not going to work. Forcing yourself not to think and getting angry when it happens too much is just you putting on more frustration, more pain, more deconstructivity, adding it all to those clouds that you'd actually like to pass, or that you'd like to get rid of, in a sense. But the great thing is that I'd like you to just see what's there, the essence, and to just not give other things, like thoughts, or cars, or dogs barking, or the sound of a refrigerator, whatever. Just don't give it your attention. Let it be. Perceive it. Don't focus on it. But accept that it's there. It's part of this moment. Here it is, and here it goes, and here it leaves. You remain. And Alan Watts, one of my absolute favorite spiritual teachers, if not my favorite, he recommended to perceive those noises, those distractions, from the outside and from the inside as merely one happening. It's one happening. Don't differentiate between that, and don't give it too much attention. Just be. those happenings are just a happening within the immensity of the ever-present silence and space. And within that purity, you come to find yourself. And the longer you meditate, the more you tend to get rid of things that you previously perhaps perceived to be you, to be part of you, part of your essential character traits or whatsoever. Now, when we're completely quiet inside, and we ask ourselves the question, who am I? We tend to struggle to find an answer. And there was a moment while I was watching a video from Adyashanti, another spiritual teacher that I can highly recommend, where he talked about that. And when I asked myself that question, who am I? Many times before, I struggled to find an answer because there was nothing there. And the thing he said is, well, what is it that perceives the nothingness? Maybe that's you. And that's why, at least I personally, see myself with my true self as conscious awareness, and the rest just adds up to it. But again, don't get caught up in an ego construct around that theory. At least I personally very quickly notice my brain trying to make sense of it, trying to fit it into the bigger picture that I puzzled together for myself. To have patterns, to have an idea that is coherent and sounds like a reasonable perception of reality. Whenever I learn something new that I perceive to be maybe true, I try to fit it in. But what is trying to fit it in? Is that really you? Or is it your mind that's trying to fit it into some boxes, that's trying to categorize it, trying to make sense of it? Is it really the ultimate truth? Who knows? I don't. At least not that I know. Your mind tries to make sense of it, though it goes so far beyond what the limited mind that wants to sustain its reign of your identity. It goes so far beyond what that mind could have ever thought. At least that's what I think. At least sometimes I feel like I perceive it that way. best thing that you can do is just simply be. And again, if your mind gets busy, that's absolutely fine. Just be present in the here and now, instead of getting angry about something that is already over. I'd rather choose to be happy and present in the now than to be angry about something that's happened in the past. So just move on from there. Being present in the now is not exhausting. Ultimately, you're in your most natural state, if you ask me. Or you're on your way to get there. But it's also important not to perceive the meditation as the way to getting somewhere, because then you're letting the very moment, the here and now, pass, and you're kind of living in the future then, working towards something. But it's right here and right now. Be present. Listen to the silence and feel the energy of the present moment and the space that you're in. Appreciate this moment and appreciate your surroundings. When you look around you with your heart, just about anything, don't quote me on that, but so many things that you didn't find to be special, you look at them with your heart and you find them beautiful. Because it's all part of this one big happening. This one essence. At least that's That's what I think. I encourage you to remain present also after the end of this session. Make your everyday life a meditation and try to remain conscious. And when you sense yourself getting or being trapped in ego, do yourself, to your true self, the favor to ask yourself, is that really me? Is this that I'm sensing right now really pure? Is it representing me, who I am? Many times it gets you out of the superficial illusion, or at least makes you aware of it. And sometimes it's unpleasant to get out of this, to leave that bubble, because it might have been a pleasant feeling. But often it doesn't take long for you to realize that you'd rather be pure and settled in the heart than keeping up those limited beliefs and emotions. At least for me, in the long run, well, long is to be put in brackets. At least for me, this drastically improves my life. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. I appreciate it, and I wish you all the best.